What's up everyone? My name is Warren Marshall. I am an adventure elopement photographer based outside of Seattle, Washington, and it's really good to have you here today. A recent question I've been getting during some Instagram Q&As is how I got started in photography, and I really feel like this warrants a long format answer because when I bought my first camera 9 years ago, I never expected to be doing with it what I am today. So rather than simply give a brief answer, I thought I would share a succinct outline from my origins in photography through the subsequent years to where I am now. My initial interest in photography was really a byproduct of other passions that I already had. So from about the age of 6th grade on, I got really into skateboarding and then slowly moved over to like the BMX side of things, riding dirt bikes, motocross, and really was just a total skate park kid. Once I was able to drive, I also got really into modifying cars and started diving into like the lower stance scene sort of. And also just growing up in Washington, being around the outdoors and going hiking a lot has always been a big part of my life. Photography was always a really common piece in all of the subcultures that I was a part of. So whether it was just days at the skate park, riding motocross at the tracks, going on hikes, or hanging out at different car meets, there was always kind of a buddy here or there that had a camera. I always thought it was super cool. After high school, I decided I would pick up a camera of my own. So in the spring of 2011, when I was 19 years old, I bought my first camera, and it was a used Canon Rebel XSI, which is like, I want to say the 2nd or 3rd generation Rebel, like super old school, but it was so much fun, and that really was just like the spark that started it all. So for probably the first 6 months that I owned that camera, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really learn to shoot in manual or what any of the settings were. I would just kind of go around and take photos in all the automatic modes that the camera had. And not long after that, I ended up getting connected to an older guy named Lars, who would basically become my first photography mentor. And Lars was like the OG guy for environmental portraiture, like decades before Instagram was ever even thought of. He was already taking models out to, the mountains and shooting these really cool portraits, and he really taught me a lot of like how to actually shoot in manual and work a camera, interact with models, and just really got me going in that direction. In January of 2012, I started college at Washington State, and it was around that same time that I started to really dive deep into photography. So I had actually upgraded to a few nicer lenses, as well as purchased a new camera body, which was a Canon 7D at the time. And throughout those first couple of years in college, I was still very much in like an exploratory phase of photography, I would say, where I didn't really necessarily identify myself as like a portrait photographer, a landscape photographer. I was just shooting anything and everything that I found interesting. The platform for photographers at the time was called Flickr, and I remember being really inspired by different photo series and challenges that people would do on there. The biggest of which was probably the Project 365s, in which you're challenged to take a photo every single day for an entire year. As inspired as I was by that at the time, I found it a little daunting being a part-time employee and full-time student in college. I didn't think I would be able to take that on, so what I decided to do instead was the Project 52, basically equating to only 1 photo a week for the entire year. The summer of 2013, in between school years, was the first time I started taking on multiple paid jobs, which mostly just consisted of like shooting portrait work for friends or their family members. Another cool opportunity I got that summer was to be on the media team for the local drift car scene, photographing their practices and events. I didn't stay there very long, but it ended up being a really good learning experience for how to get your foot in the door, which would invariably serve me in future opportunities. After I completed the 52-week photo challenge in 2013, I really wanted to step it up and go for the full 365. So at the start of 2014, I decided to give that a go, and it was also at that same time that I upgraded to my first full-frame camera, which was the Canon 5D Mark II. During that year was the first time I actually said yes to photographing a couple as well, which I'd gotten requests for here or there, but I just was honestly never too interested in it. But I ended up doing engagement photos from my college roommate and friend Bruce and his fiance Michaela. I enjoyed that experience because they were really good friends of mine. It was really low key, but I honestly wasn't really stoked on it in the sense that I was like, I can't wait to do more of this, and really wanted to be seeking that out. If anything, I was still sort of on the other end. So as 2014 progressed, I was taking a photo every day, still mostly shooting a lot of hiking, cars, skate park stuff, and just documenting my day-to-day life. As 2014 was coming to a close, I really needed a break from school and a change of scenery in my personal life, so I ended up moving down to Vancouver, Washington, just outside of Portland, Oregon. And I knew I needed to work while I was down there and wanted to see what kind of opportunities I could create for myself, so I literally ended up just Googling Portland photographers, and emailing, cold calling a ton of different people, being like, hey, I'm eager to learn, I'll work, do you have any opportunities for me? And through that kind of chain of events, I ended up getting a job / internship with a commercial photographer down there named Grant. That was the first time I was really exposed to like running a legit photography business full-time, being a professional at it. And he did a lot of commercial work, so I was assisting and shooting with him, doing a lot of brand imagery, working his social media, his SEO, running all of the back-end stuff while also being on set and exposed to a lot of the production side of photography, which was a really good learning experience for me. I ended up living outside of Portland and working with Grant for about 6 months, and this was about the time that I started diving into Instagram as well, so I was making connections through there. Got to become friends with a wedding photographer down in that area named Tara, which still did not get me sold on the whole wedding couple side of photography, but I started to see what her whole lifestyle looked like compared to Grant in the commercial world, and just sort of had both of those on my radar. At this point, I had gotten the break from school that I felt I had needed at the time, and in the fall of 2015, I moved back to Pullman to complete my senior year of college. Here I was met with yet another really great opportunity, which was to go work in the video department for University Communications on campus. This also didn't just come to me by accident though. My roommate at the time has just been starting to get into photography a little bit, and he had gotten connected with these people. I really wanted to be a part of it, so I just emailed them and said, hey, here's what my background is in photo. I would love to learn more of the video side of things. Do you guys have any space for me available? And at once they took me on. So senior year ended up being a really influential time on me as a photographer. I was learning a lot of new technical skills and diving into the video side of production with the guys in the UCOM department. My roommate Tim and I would go on these crazy photo adventures as often as we could and just go exploring. And I also started to shoot a lot of portraiture at this time. Shooting out here with Alyssa today. And Piper in the epic snow. Being in a small college town and meeting people all the time who were down to go take photos, I would schedule shoots as often as I could, and that really compounded my skills as a portrait photographer. And looking back now, what happened next was the first layer of foundation laid for me to go on to be doing what I'm doing now as an elopement photographer, because I was met with 3 unique opportunities simultaneously. As it turns out, my old English teacher from junior high had been following my photography through Facebook and Instagram, and she actually reached out to me and asked if I would like to come give a talk to her photography class at the new junior high she was teaching at. I had actually made a friend on Instagram who happened to live in the same town as the junior high was that I was going to go speak at. So I reached out to her and asked if she would like to come do it with me, and we ended up doing a little presentation and Q&A to this junior high class. Sam is a really talented wedding photographer, and I had actually mentioned to her in hanging out that weekend that some friends of mine from college had asked me to shoot their wedding the following summer, which I had still been getting requests for here or there, but I just wanted no part of. And Sam was really one that encouraged me to give it a try, because I've been shooting long enough and had enough experience in portraiture that I felt confident enough to be able to do the job well. So I ended up agreeing to shoot my friend India's wedding, and honestly that was the first event in a series of motions that really just started snowballing. Shortly after that, I graduated college and moved back to Western Washington. Throughout the rest of that year, I was doing more shoots than I ever had before, and I wasn't limiting myself any longer to just shooting portraits, but also including couples, weddings, elopements, and really developing a style which was shaped around photographing people in the outdoors. I licensed as a business at the end of 2016, dove into weddings and couples full-time at the very start of 2017, and the rest is history. It's always interesting to look back to the beginning, because it's clear to me now that so many different elements of my work can be traced back to those experiences, and I'm actually really thankful that I tried a bunch of different stuff before becoming a wedding photographer, because my work really wouldn't be what it is today without that. So almost 10 years have passed since I bought my first camera, and now in my 4th year being full-time, 90% of what I photograph in my business are adventure elopements and couples. Maybe a few times a year, I'll get hired to shoot branding content for a company, which usually revolves around an apparel line of some sort. I still shoot a lot of landscapes, of course, just for fun portrait sessions when I have the chance. When I shoot personal work, you could call it travel or lifestyle influenced, but I just mostly see it as documenting my life. With my style and the nature of storytelling when you photograph people, what I would take photos of personally or for work aren't really segregated. They're one and the same, which I really enjoy. So that's the condensed version of my photography journey from the beginning until now. Each one of those points is a different rabbit hole I could go down, many of which will probably be saved for future videos. So thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you guys found that interesting. If you have any questions, please let me know, as I'd be happy to answer anything. And until next time.